Hi all, thank you for being here. Today, my presentation consists on groupthink and how is this related to the false consensus effect. I'm sure many of you in your daily lives face situations in which you think like the people around you. Time ago, I was expecting a superhero movie. This movie is Batman from Matt Reeves, and my dad thought it was a good idea to take my mother and brother to watch the movie with us. And once we watched the movie, I really liked it. I loved it. I loved the characters. I loved the plot. I loved everything about it. But my parents and brother did not like the movie as much as I did. So in reality, my parents had a contrary opinion with me. And once we share our thoughts, that made me realize that maybe that movie was not as good as I initially thought it was, because both of my parents and my brother had negative opinions about it. And I was the only one who liked it. So somehow my thoughts are being changed in related to a movie. So I wonder what happens on a larger scale, on larger groups, on groups that take more important decisions rather than like in a movie or not. So this is what is known as groupthink. And according to psychology expert Kendra Sherry, groupthink is known as all members of the group remaining quiet to keep the uniformity of the crowd, rather than delivering contrary or different opinions from other members. Groupthink is meant to happen by two main reasons. The first reason is on a strong group identity. I'm sure in your group of friends, many of you share the same things or maybe the same interests. So you have a group identity. Many of the members share the same thoughts. And this is where groupthink happens, because all members share the same thing. And when one member tries to deliver a contrary opinion, maybe that member is afraid to not keep in the uniformity of the crowd, and therefore giving an opinion that is different from all members. The second reason is a leader influence. When you think of a leader, you think of someone that is charismatic. So whenever in a group of friends or a group of work, you think of a leader that is so charismatic that everybody, what the leader says, everybody agrees with him. So when everybody agrees with him, they are afraid to share their own thoughts individually. And also the role of a dominant leader. I'm sure many of you, when you were children, had this friend that was very dominant. And I had that experience too. When I was a child, I had a friend that every time we wanted to play something, he was the one to decide, because he was very dominant. And because we wanted to, many times when one of us disagreed with him, he was kind of aggressive with us, because he wanted to play everything, and he wanted to do the things that he liked. And many of us, by wanting to fit in, we agree with him and remain quiet. So I wanted to look at the image. You can see all members of the group looking at the same direction. This is known as a straight line thought, and you can see the guy in the middle who is waking up. And I wanted you to think on that middle guy, because I want each of you to wake up a groupthink. When you, many times in your group of friends or your group of work or whatever, you disagree with something. And this is important for you to wake up and make your voice heard. And once we understand groupthink, we must understand that our thoughts are being blinded. And this is known as a cognitive bias. We cannot see or think further from what our group thinks. This cognitive bias has many forms, and the form I was interested in is the false consensus effect. So if you see the image, you can see all members of the group following the same direction as the leader, because they're thinking in the same way, they're thinking in the same direction. And they're blind because they are not sharing their thoughts individually. And this is very dangerous, because if you see in the image, they are taking a risk because they may fall off the cliff. So we must understand this cognitive bias. As I explained before, is the false consensus effect that consists of an unconscious phenomenon in which one member of the group thinks that all members of the group think like him. So there's a false consensus created in each member. This is very important, because if we are part of this and we don't realize we're part of this, in the long run, it's had negative consequences for us, because it affects our ability decision-taking skills. we struggle to take decisions individually because by being part of the group, we wait for the leader or the person we care on to take the decision for us. So when we face situations in which we should take important decisions by ourselves, we struggle. So I wanted to find an example that reflects the false consensus effect nowadays. And this example is social media. This is known as echo chambers because if you see in the image, everyone is liking the same thing. I'm sure many of you join groups in Twitter or Facebook that you share the same interests with all members, and you all listen to them. And because of this, there's an echo chamber being created. Your mind is trapped. You cannot think further from what the cage tells you. And because of this, many of the members wanted to think and receive the same information they like because many of us, we receive or follow news media that is delivered the same opinions we like to hear. We're only consuming information we want to hear. And therefore, this affects us because we cannot see contrary opinions or we cannot reflect on what we think is correct or not. So I investigated and found out that Dr. Itamesh Schatz, psychologist in the University of Cambridge, found out some 3 useful skills or tools for each of us to practice when we realize we're in groupthink and we can get rid of it. The first tool is always engage with alternative perspectives. This is very important because when we engage with alternative perspectives, we are listening to others. We are building a new perspective by listening to others. So if you see in the image, you can see the people building a new perspective from all perspectives because each color represents an individual perspective. So we have our own perspective. We talk with other people to share their opinion about something. And once we listen to them, we gather ideas that are similar to us and also different for us. But if we agree with that, we're creating a new perspective. The second tool is looking at concrete data. So whenever you wanted to establish a statement or deliver an opinion, it is very important for you to always look at concrete data. Because many times when we face a situation in which our leader who has the most experience on something or is the most charismatic, say something, we take this as an absolute truth. And we do not ask for information that sustains that opinion. So it is important for us when we wanted to deliver a contrary opinion, always back it up with concrete data. And the last tool is the most personal one, that is asking yourself in first person, why do I think this way? Why do I really think this way? So if you start to question yourself at the beginning, you're starting to make the change in yourself, and that way you can make the change in others. You can make others people deliver their opinions, not being afraid of doing it. And every time they do it, they need to look at concrete data and also look at the information that is valuable. And it's also valuable for each of us to develop our own opinions. Even though we agree or may disagree with what the group thinks, we also many times want to deliver our own opinion, but we're afraid to do it. So these skills or tools are useful to you. So if you see in the image, you can see a fish looking at the same direction. And this is the important question I wanted to keep with you is, what if you're right and they are wrong? So this is a question that I wanted to each of you to think about later today. So whenever you find yourself in a situation in which all members of your group think similarly, think if you really think that way. Thank you.